Welcome to Mission Majjhima. Ajahn.
Ajahn.
Ajahn, so tell us about Majjhima number 15, the Anumāna Sutta on inference.
So the Anumāna Sutta begins with Venerable Moggallāna, the Buddha's chief disciple, foremost in psychic powers, and one of the pair that were considered the Buddha's chief disciples, Venerable Sariputta and Moggallāna, admonishing, or rather instructing the monks. And commentaries say that this actually was given at the Pavarna, which is a monastic ceremony that we have at the end of the rains retreat, where basically each monastic has to invite the whole Sangha present to give them feedback and admonish them and open themselves up to that. So basically it's him saying that even though a monastic might say, please admonish me, give me feedback, if they possess any one of these, then he lays out 16 qualities that make them hard to admonish, that the other mendicants, his companions or her companions in the holy life, will not consider them suvacho, or easy to admonish. And that's a very important word. Suvacho means easy to speak to. Vach means speak, su, easy. And then he goes through these 16 qualities, and it's just a brilliant list. Some of the ones that really might stick out to people are when admonished, one speaks, rebukes the accuser, dodges, speaks words bordering on anger, and one of my favorites, holds tightly to views. Moggallāna says that if a practitioner, though they might not say, admonish me, if they basically don't have those qualities, if they relinquish their views easily, if they don't respond to accusations with anger, then their spiritual companions will consider them easy to speak to and will admonish them. And then he goes through how one should reflect in regards to all 16 qualities. First, others or another may have this quality, may speak words bordering on anger. I will not. And just this sort of measuring oneself against another practitioner, or not in a conceited way, but just seeing how whatever your reaction to that person's negative quality or way of dealing with admonishment might be, that you don't want to have that in yourself. He goes through all 16 sort of as a way of motivating oneself to relinquish those negative qualities, and then says that one should inspect themselves and do the same, saying, is this quality present in me? And if it is, relinquishing it. If it's not, then one should dwell happily meditating. And then at the end, Moggallāna brings this beautiful simile of the mirror, where it's, once one's looked at oneself in this way, it's like a young person fond of adornments would look at themselves in the mirror, and if they saw a blemish, would wipe it off, but if they saw their face was clean, would rejoice in that. So a beautiful simile to kind of bring everything together. Ajahn, what about you? What do you appreciate about the sutta, or what sort of do you find interesting?
I've loved this sutta for a really long time. I've stayed at a monastery where they actually recite it on a regular basis. The commentary actually calls it the bhikkhu patimokkha, i.e. this is something which the commentary suggests a monastic should review 3 times a day. If they can't do it 3 times, they should do it 2 times. If they can't do it twice, they should at least do it once, but not give up that duty. And I myself find it so useful in terms of, just how am I receiving feedback? Just pointing to the primacy in terms of spiritual growth, or really growth in any kind of skill. And the skill of being a renunciate is very much included in this. You need to be able to hear feedback, because we don't know why we're not succeeding is because we don't see our blind spots, and being open to feedback, which is exactly what this sutta is encouraging one to be, is a really important meta skill, like an overarching skill. You need to learn how to be easy to talk to. And the Buddha gives these 16 specific injunctions on how to not do the opposite, i.e. be dubacha, i.e. hard to speak to. And it just undercuts just this predilection to fight back, and the ego's drive to make excuses for itself. And I think, although the commentary calls it the bhikkhu patimokkha, I think you could think of it as a couple's patimokkha as well, for like a family relationship, or at least the relationship between any adults or a working community. these are dhammas which lead to harmony in terms of each individual in that group really having the maturity to look at themselves and see, oh, can I receive feedback well? Am I doing things which make it hard for other people to give feedback? And how about for yourself, Ajahn? What do you find useful, and how do you relate to this sutta? Anything else you'd like to draw out?
Honestly, I think what you pointed to, which is that I don't think you need to necessarily dig for any, profound connection here to some commentarial or other deep point of doctrine, but rather just that list of this is how we respond to criticism, and the importance and primacy, like you said, of really considering, the Buddha said one should think of one who is willing to point out one's faults like someone pointing them to treasure. And to hold it like that, there's a story in the suttas about Channa, who was the Buddha's charioteer. And the Buddha, at the end of his life, gives the Channa was being quite difficult to admonish and not changing his ways. And the ultimate punishment the Buddha lays on him, or way of kind of bringing him into line, was called the brahmadanda. And it said that the other bhikkhus should not admonish Channa. And basically that idea that the ultimate punishment is to be cut off from the feedback of your fellow practitioners is such a way of showing the value we should place on that. And just, the importance of really being open to feedback, not responding with any of those things, even words bordering on anger, and just, placing one's hands in anjali and kind of taking what comes. And then if you need to respond or justify some action at some point, maybe there's room for that an hour later or the next day. But in that moment, just being easy to admonish. And it's a regular thing we do when we talk to senior teachers, of saying, look, if I've done anything, please admonish me. We pretty much every time we interact with a senior teacher, you and I will take pains to do that. And it's part of our monastic discipline. So just a beautiful sutta in that sense. Ajahn, what about you? Anything else you'd like to draw out or note?
Yeah, I think I'll just read out the 16 qualities, just because they do undercut this tendency. I was amazed the first time I read this, that it seems like the Buddha 2,600 years ago is reading my mind and, predicting all these different ways that I become, just self-preserving, or try to, the ego tries to protect itself. And really they are qualities which anybody who cares about moral beauty or social grace really needs to pay attention to and become sensitive to. So one, recognizing if you have evil or unwholesome wishes, being dominated by those wishes, lauding oneself and disparaging others, being angry and overcome by anger, being angry and resentful because of the anger, being angry and stubborn because of the anger, angry and uttering words bordering on anger, being reproved and resisting the reprover, being reproved or being given feedback to and denigrating the reprover, being reproved and counter-reproving the reprover, reproved and prevaricating, i.e. taking the talk aside and showing anger, being reproved and failing to account for one's conduct, being contemptuous and insolent, envious and avaricious, fraudulent, deceitful, obstinate and arrogant, or as you pointed out, adhering to one's own views, holding to them tenaciously, and relinquishing them with difficulty. We do that so much, and it just makes us hard to live with. When we don't do these things, it does point to this beauty that is so easy to see in people who have imbibed and understand these qualities and tendencies in themselves. So, is there anything else you'd like to pull out of this sutta?
Just to appreciate the Buddha pointing to comparing oneself to others, but in a wholesome way, where sometimes really a quality can be hiding in you, and you can really kind of turn a blind eye to it, but sometimes bringing to mind another who you see this quality in, and you just realize that you don't want to bring that same energy or flavor into the world. There can be a really wholesome way of holding that, where it lets you really strengthen your resolve to not carry on that pattern or that way of being. So that has to be held carefully, but I find that to be a particular skillful means here that I appreciate. So,
And Ajahn, what is the word of the day?
suvacho. So we did bring this up, but it means easy to speak to, su, easy, and vach, to speak. Do you have anything to note about it?
It comes up both in the Mangala Sutta, the Sutta on the highest blessings, and the Metta Sutta, so two of the most popular discourses in the whole canon.